This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. We have with us on WZRD Scott Wajda. He is the president of the Trilogy Client Advisory Council, and he is also, of course, he is a client, and Scott is here to tell us about his recovery. Hey, hi, Scott. How are you today?
Not bad. Not bad. Hey, thank you for interviewing me.
First of all, Scott, how many years have you been a client at Trilogy?
10 years. That would
And
be,
mhm. and over the years, uh, do you do you know about when has the recovery been has your recovery been uh how has it gone? Could you tell us the milestones, and then also uh what how did those milestones come about?
milestones.
Mhm.
Um, well, well, milestones would be that when I was still living at Albany Care, I was I started going back to church, and then after I'd been going back to church for a while, I realized that there might be something to the fact that I'm living in a facility for the mentally ill, and I might be depressed, So, so accepted, I accepted that, yes, I'm living in a facility for the mentally ill and I'm depressed. And a little while later, accepted that, yes, I do require medication to treat my mental illness.
Mhm.
Um,
You able to move yourself into the middle of the frame?
like this.
Yes, perfect.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for being here. So when you were in Albany Care, that was separate from any treatment. That was just was that just a living facility? Why were you at Albany Care?
Um, yeah, that was like I said, a facility for the mentally ill. It was
That
basically
was too okay. Mhm.
it was a yeah, it's just a living facility somewhere where people could go to if they had nowhere else to go. Um, they could live there. There was some treatment also offered at that time there, groups and such like that. There were social workers there as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, it wasn't so yeah, there it was considered to be a treatment facility, yes.
So when you entered the Albany Care, um, did you wanted treatment, and then that diagnosis, and then you went to Albany Care, right? Is that what happened?
No, I was well, I mean, if you back up from that, I was living on my own in my own apartment.
Mhm.
I was having troubles just with everyday life.
Mhm.
I was one of the things I that was I guess difficult for people and myself was that I was I stared at women and it I guess it got to be a problem, and uh actually I was the one who went I was the one who went to the police about it. And I'm sure other people went as well, but I mean I went. And then they suggested I go to the hospital.
Mhm.
And then so I went there, and I was there for like 14 days, and then I had aftercare. And then I went again to the hospital again after aftercare. Well, I got a job, and then I went back to the hospital. And then from my second hospitalization, I went into Albany Care.
Mhm. When you were in Albany Care, uh, what kind of treatments, what uh, was there, did you just meet a therapist, or what kind of treatments did you have? Did you get a diagnosis at that time?
No, when I came out of no, I think I got my diagnosis. And I have to back up a little bit more because I had well, three different hospitals,
Mhm.
two different hospitalizations, I guess, but three different hospitals. Because I was only at the second hospital for like a week, maybe less than a week, maybe. And then they transferred me to Elgin State Hospital, and then I was there for like 6 months, and that's where I got my diagnosis. And
Mhm.
then when I got to Albany, they they sent me to their psychiatrist to determine if I was disabled or not.
Mhm.
So
So when you were in Albany, that was after you were released from the hospital, but you still needed aftercare, which was why you had to stay at Albany Care, right?
yes.
Mhm. So what happened at Albany Care? What was the next step? What was the next transition, and what caused the next transition?
You mean after Albany Care?
While you were at Albany Care, how
Well,
did
I
the
don't know.
next how did the next transition come about?
Well, like I said, I after I was at Albany for 3 years, I started going back to church, and then I after going to church off and on for about a year, I realized that I'm depressed, and I'm in this facility for a reason, and I require medication to treat my mental illness. Um, I went for the RCIA program.
What is that? What is RCIA?
RCIA is a rite of Christian initiation for adults,
Oh.
and that was offered through St. Mary's Church, the church I'd been going to. So I did that, and then I turned in Nancy Columbus. I started helping out with the soup kitchens, uh, and I was still attending groups at Albany Care.
Mhm.
Um, and then I don't know, 3 years later, after I started going back to church, the state, the state had settled the Williams degree case, and they decided to move people out of nursing facilities. So state workers came to Albany to interview people to determine if they're going to be good candidates to move out. And so I got an interview, and um, so yeah, it was determined that I was a good candidate to move out into the community.
Mhm. When you were at Albany Care, what made you suddenly go to church?
I was bored. I was
Mhm.
bored to tears.
Mhm.
There's nothing to do, except to go to groups. Yeah, at that time we only got like $30 a month out of our checks, and uh, there's nothing to do. And if you had no money, you couldn't venture far from the facility, really. I mean, because
Mhm.
I mean, that's where I ate my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I didn't go very far from there.
Mhm.
I did. Um, Now on some evenings I would, after I'd been there like 1 or 2 years, I would go to soup kitchens in the community and stuff like that. But other than that, you were just kind of like I don't want to say chain, but um you were at the facility, we'll say, you know.
And when you went to the soup kitchens, was that for a meal or was it to volunteer?
At first it was for a meal. At first I started out as I just wanted to get out of that building. I wanted to move. I wanted to go somewhere else. And I found out that these soup kitchens existed. And so I went to these soup kitchens, and like, there was just one down the street
Could
from
you
the
give us the names of the ones that you went to?
sure. Beth Emmett, which is at the corner of Dempster and Ridge. And then that was on Wednesdays. On Thursdays, I went to First United Methodist Church, which is about a mile. I you know, but yeah, it's about a mile away from Albany, so it was a good mile there and back, and so it was good exercise going, and then got to meet other people, other than people that were at Albany Care, and had some good food. The food was better than what we were getting at Albany. So but when I started going, and this is before I started going back to church, and so when I started going back to church, and then I found out that the Knights of Columbus were they sponsored some of the soup kitchens on Thursdays, so I joined the Knights of Columbus and started to volunteer at the soup kitchens.
Mhm. St. Mary's, right? St. Mary's,
Yes.
some, okay.
Yes.
How did you realize that you were depressed?
Mm. Um, I would have to say that I from going to church, in kind of well, one, getting out of that building, going somewhere else, going to church, having spirituality, um, getting meeting other people, participating basically, and realizing slowing my mind down, I guess. And as I went to the services and went to the masses, and found people that accepted me. They may not have known that I was um, uh, depressed or living in the facility at that time. When I first started going back to church, but later on they did. But in the beginning it was, I was just somebody else that came to church. I was just somebody else that came there, and then I guess, and just I don't know, having, I guess, letting the Holy Spirit move me, you know, or letting, or he did move me. The Holy Spirit did move me, whether I wanted him to or not, really, just by attending Mass, and getting into that spiritual um,
Realm?
space. Yeah,
Mhm.
space. Yeah.
When you interacted with the fellow congregation, did you mingle with them? Did you socialize with them at all, or did you meet them only during church?
Oh, yeah, it was only during church. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was only during the service. Usually, at that time, they had like once a month they would have like what they would call hospitality, and then so that would be after each mass. There would be like a lot of food put out,
Mhm.
and people would go and eat food and talk and things like that. And I there was there was one guy who after a while he would after I'd been going back for a while, um, he would walk up to me and he'd go, do you want a Coke? You know, and or do you want something to eat or something like that? Because I was just kind of like, um, I wasn't very social at all. I was, I was just kind of there for the food. I was standing by myself, not talking to anyone or anything like that. And he would come up to me and ask me those questions, and I would, after a while, said, "Yeah, okay, you can give me a Coke or some food or something," and then we started talking and we got to know each other, um, and I guess that's mostly where that's kind of where I'll say my socialization started, um, with that guy, at that church at that time, you know, um, so, um, yeah, so
And
that's
you,
what, yeah.
yeah, and you realized that you were depressed, but how was it? I know I asked you before, but what uh what in your life caused you to realize that you were depressed? Because I'm sure that other people might be depressed as well. Which is maybe how you realize you were depressed might help other people realize that they are depressed as well.
Well, I guess some of the signs or symptoms would be isolation. Uh, if you find yourself isolating, um, not wanting to talk to people, not being wanting to be around people, um, um, uh, I guess I toward right before I went to the hospital, it was the first time. It was, I was in my apartment all the time, a lot. If I didn't have any money, then I would stay in my apartment and didn't do anything. If I had some money, I would go out to Borders and read magazines, get some coffee, read magazine. But I wouldn't. That's all I would do. That was my like activity. But it wasn't. I didn't do it with anyone. I didn't talk to anyone when I was there or anything like that. I was so I can get out of my apartment. But yeah, if you're, you know, if you're feeling, and there's that feeling of hopelessness, feeling of worthlessness, feeling of I'm not loved. I'm not loved. No one likes me. Uh,
Mm.
uh, um,
So you realized that, and that's when you realized that you were depressed.
those are the. I mean, there were times when I was. Earlier than that, a few like years before I went to hospital, there were counselors I was seeing that were telling me that they wanted to put me on medication for depression, but they never explained it to me. They never
Mm.
said, this is why we think that you should go on medication. You know,
Mm.
they never said that. They never explained it to me, so I never did. So I never really. So I knew. I guess people thought that I was, but I didn't. I guess I didn't think I was. I didn't
Mm.
feel that I was. And it. I guess the real reason I ended up in the hospital was that I was, I was staring at women. I was, um, you know, and they knew that. I could never hide it. I still can't hide it, you know, and they and I'm sure they were saying something to the police about it, but I don't know. But I do know that I was concerned enough about it, or thought that people were concerned enough about it, that yeah,
Mhm.
I went to the police. I tried to find out myself, and so when I was talking to them, talking to the officer, he um, he says, I actually started crying to him, and he says I go to the hospital. So, and that was my first hospitalization, and they
Mhm.
sent me there, and then I talked to the psychiatrist there, and
Well,
then
well, looking back now, would you say that you were depressed, or maybe you just didn't have a chance to learn social skills? Maybe there wasn't enough mentors and enough guidance earlier for social skills. Could that be the case, or was it definitely depression? How do we draw the line? Can you tell between not having the opportunity to learn soft skills and social skills and being depressed?
well, I think it's well, I think you start out depressed. I mean, and if you're starting out depressed and you don't want to learn, you don't go out and put yourself out there to um be with others, or to learn from others, you know. Um uh I guess in my case, like, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to go all the way back, you would go to my childhood, and you know, what happened to me. I had some traumatic experiences growing up, and that influenced how I interacted with others. You know, in what ways I interacted with others. You know, so so I didn't want to. I didn't. There were certain, and because of that, then I started to think about things in, I guess, different ways than someone who would not have those traumatic experiences.
Mhm. Mhm. So you were kind of uh, traumatized then. You had a kind of PTSD in a ways because of what you experienced when you were younger.
I guess you could term it as that. I don't know if it was PTSD, but I do know it was traumatic.
Mhm.
I do for myself. Um, um, yeah. So, like I said, it influenced, how I behaved, how I interacted with others, and who I let
Mhm.
be my friend, and who I was friends with. Yeah. So,
So after you met your friend at church, did he help you gain more confidence? Did you start uh, thinking for yourself and planning better?
um, I would say that certainly helped out. I mean, I don't think that just no, I wouldn't say it was him alone, but him making that initial uh I want to say advance, but I don't. It's not wasn't advance. It was initial interaction, social interaction, I guess.
Mhm.
Asking me if I wanted some food, or asking if I wanted a Coke, or whatever. Yeah. So that started it. I mean, and as I talked to him more and gained more confidence in that way, just in talking with him, it was. it was somewhat easier for me to start talking to other people, and so um,
So when your friend asked you for a Coke and asked you for like some food, and that made a difference for you. In your later years, did you do that with others? Did you also maybe offer others that you saw might be needing a friend, and did you treat others the way that he treated you?
in a way, yeah. When I was, after I moved out of Albany and I started volunteering at the warming center, that was more of an opportunity for me to to help people out in
Mhm.
that way, to um, give back a little bit to what I've been given. So, because when I first moved into Albany, I didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to. I hate to say, like everybody else who first moves there, you just hate it. And there's, why am I here? I shouldn't be here. I'm not mentally ill. Um, but I was able to, I was able to say to myself, I'm grateful, because I don't, because I had been evicted from my apartment. So I have a place to live, I have food to eat, I have people around me, not that I was interacting with them, but there were still people around me, but, and I was in a place that kind of understood me, sort of. I didn't have to feel different, I guess. Uh, you know, so
You were receiving medication in Albany all the years you were there for depression.
yes.
And then when you moved out, how did you they were able to find you an apartment somewhere else
Yes.
with the voucher program?
It's called a Williams decree. Uh,
Williams degree. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
someone came.
explain it. Mhm. Please
Yeah,
explain.
somebody named Williams took the state of Illinois to court, and um, they said you're not providing enough funds for people to move out of facilities like Albany Care. Um, so I guess they litigated for like 5 years, and in 2010, Governor Quinn settled the case. Said, oh, "Okay, we're just going to settle this case. We're going to stop litigation. Okay, so we will fulfill the requirements of the Williams decree." Okay, so in it was initially set up for 5 years, and under the decree, the state had to move out at least 5,000 people
Mhm.
in 5 years. Find 5,000 people that could live in the community, without going back to a facility.
At,
Um,
at that time, do you know about how many people were in facilities and only 5,000 of them were moved out?
um, I no, I don't know the number of. I know a large. Albany Care is like the largest facility in the state. I think. I
Mm.
believe it is, or it's the second largest, one or the other. But then, but so there's like 350 residents there, but most facilities only have like maybe 100, 125, something like that. And there were like 28 facilities that were identified uh, as Williams class facilities. Uh,
Mhm.
but over as time went on, the state realized that it was it's much cheaper to help someone with a mental illness outside the facility than it is to help them inside the facility.
Mhm.
So the so initially the Williams decree was set to expire in 2015. But they keep going every year because they realize that it's assisting so many people, and there are so many people that may need to go into a facility, for various reasons. Okay, but they don't need to stay there for the rest of their life. They can go out and move out in the community and be very productive and contribute to society, in the community.
How many people are moved out of facilities every year because of the Williams decree?
Oh, that I don't know. I don't know that number.
That's okay. So after you moved into your apartment, how did you become a client at Trilogy?
Well, so in 2012, this is 2 years after they started the program, they started the degree. Okay. Well, at that time, the state was overwhelmed. They didn't have enough workers to handle all the people who wanted to move out, right? So they started letting agencies come and interview the prospective candidates. So Trilogy was the one who came and interviewed me.
Oh,
Yeah. So so after I got approved, then I was a Trilogy client after that.
So it was about in 2012 or so that you became a Trilogy client?
Yes.
Okay. And that was when you moved out. So it was simultaneous. You got
Well,
your own.
no. I didn't. I got the interview in October 2012,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't move out until February 3rd of 2013.
Okay.
So there's a transition process that goes on,
And when you got your apartment, you then while you were when you started living at your apartment, then you have been a Trilogy client for since then till now.
Yeah. Well, no, I was when after I got approved, they had this group at Trilogy at 1400 Greenleaf called Moving Out and Moving On. It was a group for people who were moving out of facilities. They could go there and learn about living on their own. So I was able to attend that group while I was still in the facility waiting to move out. So from that point, from the point I got approved, maybe a month, no, maybe a week after that, they let me know I was approved after my interview, and then that's when I started to be a client. So,
and when you what did you learn there at moving in, moving out the group?
Cooking, cleaning, social skills. They had different facilitators in different months, and they would all bring their today we're gonna make like tuna fish sandwiches, and then or today we're gonna make macaroni and cheese, or it sounds simple. It's not. I mean, it sounds really simple, but I mean, there were people that had never done that before. They'd been in facilities, most of their life. They'd never done those things before, and how to clean your own apartment, how to baking, what is a checking account and how do I use it, in money management goes along with that, and how does that happen, and like what it again, so preparing for the time you're going to move out and be on your own, and then what can I expect from Trilogy? What services do they provide? What can I take advantage of? What can I what groups can I attend? And why will these groups benefit me? Why do I want to go there? Why do I want to go somewhere other than my apartment?
were you tired at that time? Even while you were depressed, did you feel tired all the time, or you just didn't want to uh, venture out of your apartment?
You mean after I moved out?
No, even during, like, were some of the while you were depressed, did you feel tired all the time? I wanted to ask earlier, didn't get a
Oh,
chance to.
yeah, yeah. There was a lot of lethargy. Yeah, a lot of just plain, somebody. I'll say laziness, just because that's what people think of it as laziness. Um, um, yeah. So there's a lot of that. Um, I just didn't want to do anything. If there was, I, if I had lived I lived in subsidized housing before I went in hospital. Okay,
Mhm.
so a lot of times if I didn't have a job, my rent was zero. But um, the only thing I couldn't being a white male with uh, no major health issues and no dependents whatsoever. It was very difficult for me to get food from like food pantries. So I would actually have to go out and work, to buy food for myself, you know. And uh, so that if I hadn't had to do that, if I hadn't had to work, then I probably would not have worked. I probably would have just stayed in my apartment. I mean, that's just reality of where I was at that time, So,
And so while you were at Trilogy, you were treated by your recovery counselor, right? And therapist.
yes.
Did they give you medications and then have the medications remain mostly the same? Have they decreased? How have the medications changed over the past 10 years?
Well, I when I was in Elgin, that was the first time I was put on medications consistently. And also there were a couple medication changes right away. I had some bad side effects to some of the medication they tried to put me on. Um, they ended up putting me on Wellbutrin, um, which gave me no side effects. And I was on Wellbutrin for um, about 10 years, I think. Um, because it was because that would have been in um, yeah, 2005. Yeah, about 10 years, I think, or 11 years, I think. Yeah, 11. So in 2016, I was out of Albany. I was at Trilogy, and they started me on desvenlafaxine, and they did that because they I they wanted to give me a DNA test, and maybe it was something new that they were trying with clients. I'm not sure.
What were they trying to give you?
A DNA test,
Oh, okay.
DNA test. Okay,
Mhm.
so um, uh, the DNA test determined uh, which medications would be the most effective with the least side effects.
Mhm.
And um, so the psychiatrist I was seeing was the second option, which was because the first option was like insanely expensive, I guess. And so the second option was desfensilaxine, so I've been on that like ever since, you know. So
Distance what?
desfensilaxine is
Oh, okay. It's a
yeah,
medication. Okay.
it's a tongue twister. Yeah.
Yes. So by the way, this is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we are interviewing Scott Wajda, who is a client of Trilogy Behavioral Healthcare and also president of the Trilogy Client Advisory Council. So on the whole, how have your medications changed? Have they decreased over the years?
Um, no, I would say they stay the same.
Mhm.
Um, it's you know, I've asked that question about different medications at different dosages and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And so the answer that I would be get like because I've had a couple different psychiatrists at Trilogy, and they all would tell me the same thing. You can't compare dosages with different medications because they're manufactured differently. So they're almost completely different from like Wellbutrin would be completely different from desfensilaxine. So if you were giving someone like I was on 300 milligrams of Wellbutrin, right? That you cannot compare the 300 milligrams, uh, like say that's more like too much or too little compared to desfensilaxine because I'm only on like 25 milligrams of desfensilaxine, but that's I guess that's I guess it's comparable to 300 milligrams of Wellbutrin, you know.
Mm.
So
When so when you're taking the medications now, uh, how what does it feel like compared to what you felt like before you took these medications?
um I would just say I feel more alive, I guess. And I do know that there are times that I will slip and I won't take medication for a while.
Mhm.
Um, uh, but when I start back on my medications, I definitely feel a difference, you know, in improvement, So
In other words, that you seem to be you did they say mention that you will be needing these medications for the rest of your life then?
um, to me personally, no,
Yes. Mhm.
no, they never said that. Though there's yeah, I have heard of people that have gone off medications and don't use them anymore. Um, I I don't know if I'm there yet. I just because uh in my I lived my life in a lot of fear, uh, uh, from the trauma that I experienced as a child and maybe the way I was brought up. Also, there's other people, but again, there's other people that may have experienced the trauma that I did. I mean, that don't have that problem. They were treated. They don't have the problem of fear, that I do. Um, I guess an example of that would be my sister, who lived in, she's 4 years younger than I am. And basically we grew up in the same house together, but she has a totally different um, idea or opinion on how uh, our life was at that time. You know, um, she did experience everything I did, from my parents, or my mom, you know. Um, so our experiences are different, so our opinions are going to be different, but and people themselves are different. So, um, yeah, so some people that have very similar traumas can experience them differently and love their lives differently, So
Mhm. So you mentioned that faith helped you recover, but how far is your recovery from with faith helping you?
I would say that faith has taken me a long way from when I started going back to church when I lived at Albany Care until now. Am I still afraid? Yeah, I'm still fearful. You know, uh, do I have as much fear as I did? No, I don't. You know, um, uh, am I better able to communicate and socialize? Yes. Um, you know, uh, do I have more to do? Yeah, I do. Yeah, do I have more to go? Yeah. I mean, and it's more of not stopping, not stopping recovery, because I know for myself, like I said, there's times where I have slipped and not taken my meds and for days at a time, or you know, um, but when I go back on my meds, I realize like I need these meds, I need to do it, I need to take them, you know. There is a fear of um, not or of stopping services and not getting the support that I'm getting now, and having to find that support somewhere else, other
Mhm.
than the agent, so I'm getting it from now, you know. Um,
In other words, you're worried that if you do stop the meds and then move on, and if in case you do need them again, you might not have access to them because you terminated the relationship with Trilogy.
yeah, I mean, yeah, uh, especially with uh, disability itself, if I mean, you have a grace period of where you could go off disability for a while and be able to get it back. But if you go past that grace period, it's like extremely difficult to get your disability back.
Mhm.
So
How long is that grace period?
it's like I think it's like 3 years. If you start working and you're working for 3 years, and then you can or they they might deem you as like you don't need disability payments anymore because you've been working for 3 years and you're able to work and you've done it consistently for this period of time. And so but there is always I don't know, for me it's a fear,
Mhm.
so
Have you tried working?
yeah, I worked at Albany Care, and
Uh,
before that I actually worked as an Army ambassador, for a while. When I was an Army ambassador, it was a contract thing. It wasn't, I guess it wasn't considered like official employment, but something I got paid for. But
Army ambassador, is that like a recruiting agent?
no, NAMI,
Oh, what's that? What is that?
NAMI,
Okay. And what does that stand for? What did you do?
the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay. And what about now? Are you working now?
Currently, no. Currently, I'm not. No.
Mhm. Yes. How did you how you might have mentioned this before, but how did you uh step into the role of being able to work with clients as president of the Client Advisory Council? Before, you were not able to communicate with people, but now you are able to. What how did the switch come about? Not only like the opportunity came about, but how did your the mental switch come about? Your interaction switch with people.
Uh, Interaction switch.
Yeah,
Uh,
for
hmm,
lack of a better word.
okay. Um, Participation. Um, Participating. Um, when I first was going to move out of Albany Care,
Mhm.
making the decision to allow others to help me, you know, and that meant listening to other people, you know, and um, like my recovery counselor or my therapist, engaging with them, talking with them. Um, uh,
So in other words, before you weren't uh, as compliant as with your recovery as you became.
no, I wasn't. No, not before I moved out. No.
Mhm.
I, um, and not only with my therapist, not only with my recovery counselor, but participating, meaning that I was going to I was going to St. Mary's, and actually I was doing that before I moved out, so I was doing that, and I found that helped me, you know, and found that, and I guess letting that guy, get me a Coke or get me um, something to eat, and allowing that to happen, uh, and then uh, and I guess it's going on from there. And again, that was 3 years before the guy that got me a Coke was 3 years before I moved out. But and then having still participated at church for the 3 years, um, and then getting to a point where I could, and accepting I was depressed, accepting I needed medication, um, uh, and then I'm going to church, and why, so now I'm going back to church. Why is God going to forgive me for my past? Why is God going to forgive me for uh saying no to him when he tried to inspire me? He tried to give me inspiration to go to 12-step meetings, go to church, write journal, read a book, and I always said no, no. And this is before I went to the hospital. So I always said no to those things, and now
Were
that
you were you resistant to taking medications before you went to church? Were you being prescribed medications? Were you resistant to averse to taking those medications which you were prescribed?
uh yes,
Mm.
I was so yeah, when I first got the Albany Care, I did ask the psychiatrist, I did ask him, I said, hey, could you make it so like I didn't have to take medications here when I'm here? And he goes, well, I mean, if you don't take medications, then you can't be here.
So they
And
take.
I did not have anywhere else to go. So, you know,
Mm.
and I had already been there for a couple of weeks. So it's like, well, I have a roof, I have food to eat, but yeah, okay, I'll take it. I didn't really want to, but it's like, okay, I will. And then it's like, so in the morning, I took meds in the morning and at night, and they would always come and get you, you
And
know.
everybody else at Albany Care also had to take medications every day, right?
Yes.
And uh, when they took when did they do blood work on you? Why did they say that you needed these medications?
Well, like I said, I'd been in Elgin before that,
Mm.
so they had already done all the blood work and uh there was a psychiatrist at Elgin who evaluated me and decided which medications would be good for me. And like I said, I had been on a couple of medications at Elgin that gave me bad side effects, so they had to switch medications to find one that would work for me but not give me the side effects that I was experiencing on the other ones. Um so they did all that at Elgin. They got all that worked out there.
What about at Trilogy? Are all Trilogy clients required to take medications as well?
um Yes, they all pack medications. Yeah, they,
Mm.
they all pack. Uh, yeah, is it? I mean, it's now it's a little more lax than it was. When I was at Albany, I think, but they do pack with each client. And they do encourage them to take their medications. They try to explain to them why it's good for them to take the medications and things like that.
Mm.
And I believe that they don't, they're not going to force it down the throat, but I mean if a client is non-compliant or we're talking like consistently non-compliant. We're not talking just initial non-compliance. I mean, they're going to give them a chance, but if they're consistently non-compliant for a period of time, they might terminate their clientship. You know,
What
so
about when you were, yes, what about when you were at the St. Mary's? Did you have friends over there that were in your same position?
you mean when I first started going there?
Yes, and even throughout uh, you're still a member, right, of St.
Yes,
Mary's?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Well, are there other patients of Trilogy or Albany Care there that are in a similar situation as you?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. They're not St. Nicholas Church closer to Albany um than St. Mary's, which and when I say closer, I only mean like by 3 blocks, but
Mhm.
uh but um um but no, I didn't run into a lot of people from Albany Care at St. Mary's when I was at Albany Care. Now I do more, but there are people. I mean, there are people there that from other agencies, like Thresholds or agencies that are in Skokie or whatever, that I know of that receive mental health services, and there are people that live at Greenwood Care that are closer to St. Mary's than to St. Nick's, so yeah, there are people that, yes.
Do you find that they also use faith as to help them in their recovery, or did you get a chance to discuss that with them?
No, not really. I mean, I know that the people that I'm thinking of at St. Mary's go there consistently. I see them there all the time. And they do attend prayer groups. Some prayer groups that I attend, some other ones. So yeah, I would say that they find that their faith has helped them in the recovery. Yes.
So the prayer groups are at Trilogy, right?
No.
At the St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, yes.
Okay. When you're at Trilogy and for how did was it you that felt that faith helped you in your recovery, or was it your therapist that put two and two together and said that the faith is helping you in some way toward your recovery? Or was it the therapist that suggested that you apply faith to your recovery?
Well, I can say in my case that like I said, 3 years after I started living in Albany, I went back to church. And I had 3 years of going to church before I went to Trilogy. And I think that reconnecting with my faith, reconnecting with God for myself was very helpful. And I could see that was very helpful. So, but when I first started going to Trilogy, I actually had to explain to them. I'm going to say I actually had to explain to my therapist or to my RC about faith. What does it mean to me? What am I getting out of it? And they want to know just because each individual is different, and so what does each individual get out of faith? And but there are also different types of faith, different religions and things like that. And how does, I'm Christian, but there may be, somebody who's Muslim or Islamic, and how do they use their faith to further their recovery, or they're Buddhist, or something, or maybe they're atheists and they find faith in nature, and how does that help them? And all that, it's just in that Trilogy, they don't focus in on one type of faith, or they don't try not to speak of one type, because they want all to experience their own faith and be free to experience it there, without having to think, well, they are this is like a pro-Christian agency, and I can't express my Muslim faith here, or my Buddhist faith here, or they don't want that. They want everybody to be free to express what is helping them in recovery.
You mentioned that you were reconnected to your faith, and that helped you. Does that mean that you were connected to the faith before, but then you didn't accept it before?
Oh yeah, for first 17 years of my life, yeah, I went to church.
Mhm.
I didn't, in that, I mean, that did form a spirituality within me. It was Catholic church. So, and I think that, it was not something that I continued. My mother, when I turned 17, said to me, now, it's your choice. You can go to church if you want to or not. Before that, it wasn't a choice. I had to go,
Mhm.
so, and then at 17, I kind of like gets kind of tapered off and didn't go that much,
How
couple
much
years,
of- Mhm.
couple years later, I would pop in every now and again.
Mhm.
After 18, when I was living on my own in Michigan, I would, occasionally go back, you know. But,
How much of your faith derived from uh, your state of mind after taking those drugs that were prescribed to you? For instance, when you drift away from the drugs, what does your faith feel like in the moments when you're in those in that period when you're off the drugs versus when you're taking your medications?
it would all, I guess it all depends on what's going on in my life at that time. What stresses, what anxiety is happening to me.
Mhm.
What maybe there was something that prompted me uh to go off my medication for whatever reason. And I did, and um uh but I don't know. I think that I would think I have enough faith or enough church or enough friends, uh, Christian friends, to be able to or know that my Christian friends love me. They and that I have other humans that care about me. That would that kind of pull me through those times. Um, or sustain me through those times, I should say. Um, God's love is paramount. My acceptance of His love, um, uh, and I did that early. I did that right after I moved out. Shortly after I moved out, I should say. I came to that, and all this is a process, a progression. It wasn't something I just didn't accept as love. I just didn't wake up one day and accept his love. It took time for me to do that. Um, uh, but I think the acceptance of his love, the also the realization that I am right where I'm supposed to be at this moment in time, uh, and everything has a purpose. You
What
know,
is, yeah, and what is the difference between God's love and the love that you receive from your friends?
Well, the love I received from God is never going to go away. The only way I could doubt God's love is if I doubt God's love. Um, he's not going to break up with me. He's not going to move away. He's not going to die. You know, you know, so I know that it will always be there if I allow it to be there. Um, my friends can, I can still upset my friends. I can, they might still have um, love for me, maybe not as deep of love. If I upset them enough, they may not love me as much as they did. But but yeah, my girlfriend, if I had a girlfriend, if I loved her, something might happen. We might break up, who knows? I'd lose that love, you know. Um, or maybe she moves away, or maybe my best friend moves away, you know, to another state or another country, you know. Uh, God's not going to do that, He's always there. He's not, he'll always be available to me, you know.
How do you know that he's always there? Do you receive signs or do you rely on faith?
It depends on it. No, mostly faith, but also what happens to me uh, in my life, uh, the way things unfold, uh, circumstances that happen to me, and I can look at them and say, that was God doing that. That was God that brought me to where this was, or He gave me the opportunity to do something, and I decided to do it. I took
Could
action.
you could you give us an example?
Uh, uh, yeah. Okay. Um, so I don't have a job right now. And I have, so I redid my, and told you my payee, and I redid my budget. So I get $140 every week put on my Truly card. So and last week, I had actually saved some money from the week previous to that. So I had like 165 bucks on there, I think. And and I get paid every Tuesday. And so I got paid on Tuesday, and I'm thinking, I'm in my head, I'm planning, and that's the only money I get. I don't get food stamps. I get because there's been some uh, um, state red tape on that. It's on getting me stamp benefits, but so anyways, so I have about 165 on my card, and I'm planning a trip to the grocery store, and I waited a couple days, and when I went, and then I went to, I was coming back from somewhere, and I went to Jewel, and I bought something, and I couldn't buy it. I didn't have any money on my card. I had about $165 on my card. Now I find out I had nothing on my card. So I, I come home, go on my computer, and find out that my uh, my computer security company that I have, okay, took 159 bucks out of my card. Okay, for a whole year. It's a whole year thing. But they took $159 out of it. And so now I have $5 on my card, and I have basically, other than that, because I was going to use that to buy food with, and now I'm going to have to now find or plan trips to like food pantries and stuff like that, and then it wasn't an hour, 2 hours later, I think, my friend calls me. He works for, he's a Knights of Columbus with me. And
He's a what?
he's a Knights of Columbus.
Oh, okay.
He's a member of Knights of Columbus.
Mhm.
So, but he also works for Meals on Wheels, and and occasionally, for whatever reason, they have extra food, you know. And he calls me up and he goes, Scott, you know, I have like 15 extra meals, you know. Do you want them? I go, yeah, I want them. But you know, I can say that that was, he hadn't called me before that, like for months, you know, and because I guess there was some, I don't know, things with their contracting or something with Meals on Wheels or something. They didn't have the extra, you know, and but you know, he did then, you know, and that was the time I got my money taken out of my card, and I got the extra food, and you know, I get, you know, so times like that, I can say that, uh, you know, God is looking out for me. And if I, you know, if I continue to do, you know, what, you know, and I always say, you know, I don't know where God is going, my destination is. I don't know where God wants me to end up. I don't know where that's going to be, you know.
Do you feel that you're doing God's work now? And if
Well,
so,
I know how to get there. I know how to get to where God wants me to be, even though I don't know where that is. By going to mass, attending prayer groups, uh, helping others, you know, doing other, you know, volunteering. You know, like when I volunteered at the Warming Center, or, you know, I'm helping others over at Trilogy. You know, by, you know, staying on the council and uh, trying to guide the new officers along, and trying to uh, um, improve. I wouldn't say improve. I'll say enhance services that they already offer over there. You know, for the council and for the collectivity, and the representatives that are on the council right now seem to, you know, I guess, be in tune to what I'm trying to accomplish there. Um, but you know, and it's that, uh, it's the acceptance of, I'm right where I'm supposed to be at this moment, you know, and you know, even though I don't know where God wants me to be, I know how to get there. And I think that belief, that knowledge, I guess, that acceptance of that, the realization, then the acceptance of that is what has carried me through, and carried me through just times of like, why am I here? What am I doing this for? You know, well, why am I, you know, why is this happening to me? You know, I think that acceptance, and the,
what is your next step toward recovery now?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what that is. You know, I do know I have to keep moving forward. I do know I have to keep participating. I do know that I need to um, continue participating, continuing to go to Trilogy, continuing to have my therapy appointments, continuing to go to church, continuing to volunteer at church, um, you know, continuing to reach out, continuing to tell my story, you know. That's what I know right now. Where that leads me, I don't know. But I know that I do know that that is helping me right now. All those things are helping me, so I'm not going to stop doing those things, and one of the things is that I realized probably early after I moved out was releasing myself from expectations for myself and for other people, and
So,
not,
so there's less disappointment.
yes.
Well, Scott, thank you so much. We hope the very best for you, and that uh, your next step of recovery will take you far, and uh, all the best wishes to you, Scott, for all that you do as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if our listeners want to learn more about you, and where should they go?
Learn more about me.
Yes, maybe they have questions and they want to contact you, or maybe you have other uh, content that they could access to learn more about you. Where should they go?
Well, I do have a Facebook page under my name. I do have my own online store called God's Inspiration Cafe, where they can leave
Yeah,
comments. They
no, I can't. We can't promote
Oh, that's
a
right. That's
store,
right.
and but yes, but
Or
they could
I have a YouTube channel too. So
YouTube channel. And what's the YouTube channel called?
just my name, Scott Wajda. It has my
Okay,
picture on it.
okay.
So
Okay. Well, Scott, thank you so much, and the best of luck to you. And we'll uh, talk again maybe some other time.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy.
You're welcome.
Yep.